see possible futures all at once. And in so many futures, our enemies prevail. But I do see a way. There is a narrow way through.
You are not prepared for what is to come.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Film Jump with Jesse and Chris. We're bringing you Dune Part 2, the review. We just got done seeing it at the Fan First IMAX screening. What a film.
Yeah, exceptional.
This review is pretty much only going to be about the movie and not so much as an adaptation or how close or not close it is to the novels. I'm going to say it, the thumbnail shows it. It's a bona fide masterpiece.
Yeah, I think it's an improvement on the first one in pretty much every category. And the first one, it aged well. I didn't love it initially, and it aged well. And this one, every single element, script, pacing, action, humor, cinematography, production design, it improved on the first one in every way, and that's a very tall order, and it did it.
As far as Dune Part 1 goes, our review, we called it like an incomplete masterpiece, in that it's excellent across the board, but it suffered from a little bit of that Part 1 syndrome, but that's okay because it's a Part 1 and now we have Part 2.
Yeah.
It doesn't at all bring down number 2, but if anything, Part 2 elevates Part 1. It's safe to say this will be up there in the pantheon of great cinematic fantasy epics. People look back on and say that was just top tier, like The Lord of the Rings, like the Dark Knight trilogy, so to speak, even with only the 2 films.
100%. It completes the adaptation. It completes the epic. You know, you wouldn't stop the Lord of the Rings trilogy after 1 or 2 movies or after the first half of one of the movies. You know, this is the complete story. This is a Part 1, Part 2. It's a single epic that's self-contained. There's a door left open for future installments, but even as a Part 1 and Part 2, this is one epic, one journey, and it is fantastic. It will go down there, not just with among some of the best sci-fi films, among one of the best sequels, but I also think it'll go down as one of the best sort of epic adaptations of a novel of the modern era of cinema.
Yeah, I want to talk about Timothée Chalamet and how he was able to carry the weight of this movie on his shoulders, and his acting chops. I mean, everybody across the board is excellent in this movie, just like they were in the first. Everyone brings it, and there's a little bit of levity. There's in this one that was kind of lost in the first one. Some people call the first one like kind of maybe boring, which I think is definitely the wrong criticism for that. Yeah. This one is the opposite. There's humor, there's levity, but there's also this real tangible stakes and the heaviness of the story of Paul Atreides. And I think there's something to be said about Timothée Chalamet as an actor now. He's like a new Leonardo DiCaprio, in that, you know, we talked about he's kind of like the heartthrob for all the ladies out there, but he can also carry these blockbusters now. He can carry this film.
Yeah, and there weren't a lot of criticisms to lobby at the first Dune, but it does still seem like what criticisms there were, the director and the entire team took it all to heart and delivered a film that in every category is an improvement and shores up all of the very minor weaknesses the first film had, so you get a sequel that is essentially a masterpiece. It's got a little bit more humor that is well-timed and appropriate and used in a specific way that works and doesn't sacrifice the stakes of the story. The ensemble is, you know, the cast is firing on all cylinders. Timothée Chalamet, he's playing, you know, in the first film, it's a coming of age story for him, but it's sort of more of a coming of manhood story in this film. And sometimes people can maybe, because he kind of plays a little younger than he is, so there's maybe concerns that, well, can he carry it? Can he be Paul the man and not just Paul the teenager? And he handled it surprisingly well, extremely
Very
well. He delivers.
Yeah, I like how it's not so clear if his visions are steering him in the right direction, or is he this prophet or Messiah or Savior, or is he not? You know, and he's torn, and the people around him are pulling and pushing him in different directions, and he isn't sure until, you know, we hit a certain point in the movie, and we'll keep it spoiler free. But what I really like about this, and you can kind of see a lot of other stories that have been told since Dune was first written, but I like how you can look at this as like, this is the second part of like Game of Thrones, where part one is like the first half of that series, and then part two is the second half, where you have all these things like the rise of Jon Snow, so to speak. It's similar in that the hero's journey type of deal.
Yeah, you can see the influences in a lot of works that followed, and now Dune is sort of the, not necessarily the original originator of a lot of those things, but did a lot of it before a lot of the famous examples. And it does have this kind of this air of this sort of doomed fate or destiny, where for every bit you try to steer your path and avoid certain paths, the things you do to prevent it end up making it come to fruition. So there's a lot of sort of fate and destiny and visions of the future at play, and it's just really compelling.
The sheer craft on display across the board, from the acting to the cinematography, the visual effects, the sound design, the sound mix, the score by Hans Zimmer. Mm-hmm. Everybody's bringing it, and you can tell that everybody is so passionate and they have so much love and care for this project, and you can just see it all in every frame.
And you have members of the cast that some of them have been the stars and the leads in other films, and they're relegated to sort of just members of the ensemble here. But even in smaller roles, they absolutely shine and excel and bring something to the material, and it's just excellent. It's an improvement in every way on the first one, which was already a great film.
Yeah, Zendaya is definitely, her role is expanded upon in this one. She's, I would say, just as much of a main character almost as Timothée Chalamet is.
Yeah,
there is a love story there. I don't want to get into spoilers, but I really, really liked how they played it realistically. You know, these characters, they stick with their beliefs. It
doesn't take all of the expected turns.
Right,
they managed to keep it sort of unique to this film.
Yep. And then Austin Butler, his villain, and forgive me, I don't remember his name, but he's the Harkonnen assassin who is the cousin.
Yeah, Fade is how the first name's pronounced.
Or the brother, nephew, whatever it is. But his character, I've seen a lot of praise on him, being one of the better villains since, non-Marvel villains anyway, since Anton Chigurh in No Country for Old Men. And I don't think I'd give him that much praise.
Yeah, that might be overpraising it. It's an excellent performance. It's not to take anything away from it, but it is one of those things where the overall movie is so good, it's easy to say, oh, well, this is the best villain in 20 years and the best this in 20 years. It's like, it's an excellent performance. He delivers it. You would never think Elvis was also this character. You know, he just dissolves into the role. You know, this isn't like The Dark Knight where it's just almost just as much about Joker as it is about Batman. This isn't that kind of movie, but it is a great performance.
Yeah, and he serves the story so well in that I don't have a criticism as far as his character being at least portrayed on film as one-dimensional. Again, this is not so much a review of being an adaptation of the book. Mm-hmm. It's just strictly on the film itself, and he can be at least on the surface a little one-dimensional. They kind of explore some of his motivations and stuff, but you know, he was really cool. Another character who was really cool was Paul Atreides, what I say is hype man.
Stilgar. Played by Javier Bardem.
Yeah.
Excellent. Another one that's a very heavily expanded role from the first one, and he barely gets to give a true performance in the first one, and he really comes into his own in this one, and it's not just the designated comedic relief character, because it's not like a C-3PO kind of side role, but he is the outlet by which they create a lot of sort of humorous circumstances, but it's in an earnest and sincere way that's humorous to the audience, not humorous within the film, which really works.
I want to talk about Denis Villeneuve and his direction, though, and his ability to steer this ship of all the creative, every creative aspect of it. We said in our review of Dune Part 1 that his style, the way he works with the cinematography and the VFX, is very deliberate, very, I don't want to say storyboarded, but it feels intentional and tangible in how it all comes together. And that's not to say like it's not...
staged in a very sort of documentary kind of way. Not a lot of flashy camera movements within shots. A lot of wide shots. A lot of just kind of soaking in the scene and the scenery and just kind of marinating in the moment. He's continuing to do that here. It makes everything feel so real. It doesn't feel extremely movie staged for the camera. It just feels very sort of like you're capturing this sci-fi world, and it's exceptional.
And they need to give a raise to whoever does their VFX for the explosion work. And all the explosions just look incredible.
The visual effects across the board in this one, you know, when 20 years ago when you would see a Lord of the Rings and think, oh man, in 20 years, every movie's just going to have flawless visual effects. And then 20 years later, that's not the case. You know, this is the kind of epics that we imagined could be possible, where everything just looks amazing and exceptional and flawless. And we get it at least every now and again with films like Dune.
Yeah, I think overall it is a resounding win for cinema.
10 out of 10.
It is a 10 out of 10 experience. I'm sure people will have their flaws with the film, and that's perfectly fine. But this is a subjectively perfect experience because of what it delivers.
Yes.
And its intentions in delivering the second part of the Dune epic.
Yeah.
And in that regard, it's a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
It's a bona fide masterpiece, especially with the first one.
100%. The book, was adapted as a 2-part movie saga, and the first film was far superior to the second, so it was kind of a letdown in the end. This is the inversion of that. It's a great book being adapted as a 2-part film, and the first half is good, and the second half is absolutely superb.
I would absolutely love to see what Denis and crew can bring to a third one, if they so choose to do Dune Messiah.
Yeah, that would be exceptional. I'd love to see it. This isn't sequel hook. This isn't sequel bait. You don't feel like you're not getting a complete story. Part 1 and Part 2 do form a single epic. There is no required sequel, but there is an avenue for a sequel, and I'm all for whatever they want to deliver.
If the packed IMAX screening that we just came out of was any indication of how hopefully successful this movie or this film will be, I think it's a good sign. I think everybody needs to go see this. This is the reason people will go to the movies. This is a cliche you hear all the time. It was made for the big screen. Absolutely made for the big screen.
Yeah, it's one of those where if you liked or loved the first Dune, you will love this one even more. And if you were a little soft on the first Dune, you will probably like the second half. Like, give the second half a chance, give Part 2 a chance, because it's a huge improvement, and that's saying a lot. So even if Dune Part 1 wasn't really your cup of tea, try giving Part 2 a chance.
I think this one, especially combined with Part 1, deserves a more in-depth spoiler review at a later time, and I'd actually really like to do that and get into more of an analysis, but we just wanted to bring you a quick review that the hype is real.
Yeah.
All the early reviews calling it Dark Knight levels and Empire Strikes Back levels.
It absolutely earns those accolades.
I really, my jaw was on the floor for a lot of this movie. So.
Yeah, goosebumps.
Yeah, for sure. So let us know what you think when you go see it. Are you excited to go see it? Or is Dune not your thing? I think it should be, because it was a masterpiece. So, all right, everyone. Thanks for stopping by.
Have a good one.